Okay, moving on to UFC Fight Night. Jan versus Dvalishvili. A couple of interesting facts about this one. Despite being based in Vegas, Vegas being the host city of the majority of UFC events, this will be the first time that the UFC will host an event at the Theater at Virgin Hotels for a fight night. Let's see. We're going to talk about 5 fights on this card. As always, any other fights or fighters that you guys just want to spotlight for our listeners and viewers to make sure that they check out this weekend?
The one fight I will spotlight real quick is the 1.5 ones that I'll spotlight real quick. The Victor Henry versus Tony Gravely fight. That fight is going to be fucking crazy. I don't care if that's an early prelim, that's in the bathroom. That's a crazy, crazy matchup. Definitely don't miss that. And my man's Guido Canetti found his way back onto another card, and I gotta love it. So here we go.
Guido Canetti. Mark?
Yeah, unfortunately for Guido, I think Mario Bautista is a level or 3 above the guys he's been fighting recently. So we'll see how this one goes for Guido. But yeah, this is actually a solid card. If there wasn't so much going on this week, I think we would have probably previewed some more of these fights than we are. But obviously we had to make some cuts here. It's a late replacement one, but Carlston Harris is now fighting Jared Gooden. Both of those dudes are finishers. I think that could be a banger. At flyweight, I think someone's getting knocked out. Tyson Nam is fighting Bruno Silva. Both those boys are KO threats. I think someone's going down there. I like that Mario Bautista fight against Canetti. I think he has a chance to look good. And also, Ricardo Ramos, we're not going to do his fight here, even though he's on the main card. He's fighting Austin Lingo, so it's a little not the most buzzworthy fight ever, but Ramos has looked really good lately, so another guy to definitely check out.
Okay, we start things off. The only prelim fight that we're going to dissect here in the bantamweight division, Raphael Assuncao taking on Davey Grant. So Assuncao, the 40-year-old Brazilian, 28-9 as a pro, 10 submissions notably on the win column on his record. He got back finally into the win column after a 4-fight losing streak by defeating Victor Henry by decision back in October. And he'll be taking on the always exciting, dangerous Davey Grant, the 37-year-old Brit who is 14-6 as a pro with 4 knockouts and 8 subs on his record. Only 2 of his wins making it to the scorecards. He's coming off of a win against Louis Smolka back in May of 2022. Omar, start us off with this one. Give us your thoughts on this fight and ultimately your pick.
I think it's a very interesting fight. We all know that Assuncao has had some rough times in the last couple of years. He had a bit of a losing streak up until he ran into Victor Henry, where he won a unanimous decision. A good fight for sure. Davey Grant is kind of an up and down fighter. He's an aggressive fighter. And I honestly think that's going to be his downfall against Assuncao. I think Assuncao's hands are too heavy. I think they're still too quick. And I think Davey Grant puts himself in position sometimes, especially walking forward, where he may not be the best defensively. I think there's enough time in this fight that Assuncao would, one, be able to take or keep Davey Grant off of him in the event that there was any kind of takedown. But at the same time, I think he's going to end up landing big leather on him at some point throughout those 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Assuncao by KO, round 2.
Mark.
So I was pumped when this fight was Assuncao and Kyler Phillips. I wanted to see my man Kyler Phillips get a chance to break through, and Mike's man. But this is a pretty good consolation prize with Davey Grant stepping in here. Still a good fight. Davey Grant is 3 inches taller. He's going to have 2.5 inches of reach. And this might be that matchup. It might be the right type of matchup where Assuncao finally loses to a guy who's not necessarily top shelf. Davey Grant gave a solid scrap to Marlon Vera not too long ago and beat him back in the day when he was much more raw, for what that's worth. But he's going to be active. He's going to be long. He's going to be in Assuncao's face. He absolutely pushes the pace. He goes for it all fight. maybe Assuncao could kind of go back to his grappling, which we haven't seen a ton from him lately, and get him down and kind of win the fight that way. Maybe Assuncao ends up being slicker in the striking. I don't hate the points Omar made at all. But I don't know. I kind of think the volume and the well-roundedness of Grant and just like the general toughness and how much he's in your face might carry him to steal the points here and win like a 29-28 UD. And I realized I skipped the odds. I thought I was going to be picking the dog, and I'm kind of surprised. He's actually the favorite. He's minus 140, and Assuncao is plus 115. So I guess some other people are seeing it that way too. But yeah, I see a close fight that Grant just lands a bit more, a couple more significant shots, and takes 29-28.
29-20 for David Grant. And Omar, you took Assuncao?
By KO round 2.
Assuncao by KO. I have the opposite take. I'm a big fan of the firepower of David Grant. I have been since I started watching him. I'm going to take Davey Grant by knockout TKO. I'll say round 2, Omar.
I feel a little dirty, to be honest.
Why?
The Assuncau's good, but something about this matchup. I don't know.
I only got a couple words to say to you, Mike. Vamos, hey, vamos, hey, vamos, hey.
Okay, moving on. Another Nurmagomedov, this time Said Nurmagomedov, taking on Jonathan Martinez. So Nurmagomedov, the 30-year-old out of Dagestan, of course, 17-2 as a pro. If you fight out of Dagestan, you're not allowed to have like more than 3 losses. They kick you out of the state.
Yeah.
If you have more than 3 losses. He is riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Jonathan Martinez, he is streaking as well. The Dragon out of Plainview, Texas. He is 28 years old and has 17 victories and 4 defeats on his record. 8 wins by knockout, notably. I mentioned that streak. He is riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently, this past October, he gave Cub Swanson a sore leg and got out of there with a TKO victory. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your thoughts and a pick.
Ooh, baby. This is one hell of a fight. I love this matchup. A little surprised at the odds. I thought they'd be a lot tighter. Said is minus 255. Jonathan Martinez is plus 200. They're the same size. They are both incredible strikers. They've both looked great as of late. Martinez is probably the more damaging striker here, simply because of his kicks. But Said is going to be the better wrestler. He's the greater submission threat. So it's really interesting how the different ways this thing could play out, and I really am torn. The real differentiator for me when it comes to trying to pick this fight is looking at who Jonathan Martinez has fought. So this run, if we look at just the 4-fight streak that he's on, for example, it's over Sviad Lazishvili, who I honestly don't even remember who that is, if I'm being honest. Alejandro Perez, Vince Morales, Cub Swanson. None of those dudes move even remotely at the level that, say, Nurmagomedov moves. I can't speak during this preview. None of them control range the way he can. None of them are close to as fast footwork-wise as he is. And I think that may have Martinez not looking quite as effective as he has looked in this run. I just don't think he lands as much as we're accustomed to seeing. I think Said can maybe pick at him a bit, frustrate him. I think he could then even mix it up if he wants. And if he does that, if he gets a takedown or two, I think the striking opens up even more if he has Martinez trying to think about the takedown, especially if you ever caught a kick or two of Martinez that ended up in a takedown. That could really change how this plays out. So I just think there are more avenues for Said, and as dangerous as Martinez is, that's what tempts me to go that way. So I will say Said 29-28 UD.
Omar?
I don't hate it. I do get the feeling, though, that Martinez, I think after that Cub Swanson win, regardless of where you think Cub is now in his career or any of those other little tidbits you might want to pull up, I think that win against... That scared the shit out of me. My door just opened and it was my cat. I think that win against Cub Swanson meant more to him, I think, from a confidence standpoint than maybe it even did from a ranking standpoint. I think him beating somebody like Cub Swanson, to your credit, Mark, I think, his resume isn't very strong with a lot of quality wins. And I think to some extent, I think he knows that. I think he knows he puts on good performances, and you can't really say anything about the way he fights necessarily. But he hadn't really gotten to that point where he was able to say that my style works against some of the elite. And again, regardless of what you think about Cub Swanson's not an easy out at any time. He might not be ranked. He might never be ranked again. He's still fucking Cub Swanson. That's a fact.
Yes.
So I think that gives Jonathan Martinez just something a little bit more to work off of in this fight. I think he rises to the occasion. I think he knows what he's got in front of him. And I think the momentum that he's got right now, I don't think he's going to want to lose it. So I think he does everything he can to win this fight. I think he works Nurmagomedov a little bit early. And I think Nurmagomedov tries to implement a ground game of some kind. And I think if Martinez can even remotely keep him off of him, I think he ends up winning this fight. So I'm going to go with Martinez. Unanimous decision.
Wow.
I thought you'd be on Martinez. I don't know why.
It was really after that Cub Swanson fight, man. The performance itself, I thought, was just really good. Just one of those moments where, like I said, he just rose to the occasion. And he looked fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, dude's good, man. I wouldn't be shocked if he pulls it off.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he chops up and chews up Nurmagomedov's leg early. Honestly.
Martinez definitely has some firepower for sure, and it was on display in his last fight against Cub.
Yep.
But I'm not picking against Nurmagomedov, man. I think he's too talented, too good overall. He's very well rounded, and I'll say that he gets out of there with a TKO in round 3. Let's go to the featherweights. Oh, no, we're not doing that shit. Are we? No, we're not.
No.
Skipping that.
Yep.
Let's now go to the fight that was supposed to headline its own fight night 2 weeks ago, in being Nikita Krylov taking on Ryan Spann. It has now been inserted in the middle of this main card for this fight night. So here we go. Only 14 days later, these guys are still going to square off. Nikita Krylov, the minor 31-year-old out of Ukraine, back-to-back wins against Gustafsson and Ozdemir. Ryan Spann, Superman, 31 years old, out of Beaumont, Texas, 21-7 as a pro. 6 knockouts, 12 subs on his record. Also coming off back-to-back wins against Cutelaba and Dom Reyes. Omar, go first.
I can't remember for the life of me what I picked last week. So here's what I will say.
I know who you picked before. At least.
I did pick Ryan Spann.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I'm picking Ryan Spann again. But I have this feeling he's going to catch Krylov. Krylov is a really good fighter. He is very well rounded. But Ryan Spann, man, I've been a big Ryan Spann fan for a while, for better or worse. And I just think he's had some nice momentum recently, and I think he catches Krylov. I'm going to go KO round 1.
Okay, Mark.
All right. The odds have barely moved. When they were scheduled to fight, 2 weeks ago, it was Krylov minus 170, Spann plus 140. It's slightly moved in Krylov's favor. He's now minus 175. Spann is now plus 145. So pretty much the same. I guess just a tad more money has come in on Krylov as the weeks have passed here. I was happy to see this got thrown onto this card. I wasn't even aware until today. So that's awesome that we're getting this fight again so soon. We really dove into this one a couple weeks ago. If you want to hear more, you could click back to that episode. And I know we got a couple more to do here, so I won't go too deep. It's a 2-inch height and 4-inch reach advantage for Ryan Spann. We touched on this, how the dude looks like he's peaking lately. He mentioned how he hadn't really been fully committed to training until about a year and a half ago. So we're seeing a great Ryan Spann as of late. But I do think we are also seeing the best Nikita Krylov that we have seen. I think he's on a great run. I think he's really figured out how his game works and the way that he needs to fight to accentuate his skills. I liked him more when this was a 5-rounder, to be very honest, just because I don't trust Ryan Spann's cardio, and Krylov can go forever. Now that it's 3, I think it becomes a little bit more of a toss-up in my mind, but I had said originally I thought Krylov would finish it in the second or third. I went with third, and I'm going to stick with that. The clarifier that I said last time was that if Krylov comes out in round 1 and he just comes out hot and he's deciding to bang with Ryan Spann, then all bets are off. If one Ryan Spann punch lands clean, this thing could be over. But if he comes out measured, I think as the fight goes on, he can take it over. I think he can eventually have this thing on the mat and win it there, either with some ground and pound or a sub. But I'll say he gets a round 3 submission.
Krylov?
Yes.
Do you remember what I picked last time? I've been trying to think about this.
You picked Krylov, but I don't remember what your how was.
Yeah. The fact that he got sick, now it's kind of giving me pause.
Fair.
I'm like, I wonder how much that affected him. I will stick with Krylov as well.
They both had a cut twice, which is a factor. Twice in 2 weeks.
That's true, too.
Which is
That's true,
balls.
Both
And
big
Spann is
guys.
the one that struggles more with his cuts.
Yeah, I was just going to say both big guys, but Spann is bigger. And Spann is a big light heavyweight. He's 6'5".
Yeah, he's missed weight before.
Oh, it's
Tough
a
one.
catch weight. It's a catch weight.
Oh,
I
is
thought I
it?
looked and it
Because of
said
the 2 weeks?
205.
It says 215.
Oh, it does?
Oh, wow.
I read some wrong information. Okay.
That makes more
Right.
sense because
That-
as soon as you said that, I was like, he's not going to do that again. What if he does miss weight? But it's 215.
So that makes a lot of sense. Because I
Yes.
looked it up for that reason. I was like, I bet this is a catch weight. But where I looked, it said 205. You're right.
Sure Dog
Tapology,
has it in,
Tapology says 215 now.
Yeah,
Okay.
And now this is a 3-round fight, not 5?
Correct.
correct.
Interesting. Interesting. I'll take Krylov by decision, 3 rounds. Yeah, I'm confident in that pick enough to make it. Could go a few different ways, of course. This is not a huge gap here in these two. And
Yeah.
I mean, fucking Spann carries big power, and he proved it in his last fight with a jab knockout against Reyes. Okay, let's move on. 2 more, baby. And then that sweet, sweet pillow. Okay, heavyweights. We have Alexandr Volkov taking on Alexandr Romanov. So Volkov, Drago, out of Moscow, Russia, 34 years old. 35 wins, 10 defeats as a pro. 23 wins by knockout. He's only been KO'd twice, only been subbed 3 times. Coming off of a knockout win over Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Standing across from him will be King Kong, Alexandr Romanov, the 32-year-old out of Moldova. Far fewer fights on his record, 16-1 as a pro. That one loss happening just recently. His most recent fight handed his first loss, a majority decision loss against Marcin Tybura back in August. Of his 16 victories, 6 by knockout, 9 by submission. He has never been knocked out. He has never been submitted, as we know, because I just said he lost by decision. Omar, start us off. Give us your thoughts and your pick.
I don't normally pick Volkov almost ever for anything, but I think I'm going to go with Volkov for this one. I think his height, his reach, and his size in general, I think will play a factor in this one for sure. And that's knowing full well that Alexandr Romanov is like 6'2", Volkov is like 6'7", 6'8", something crazy. He's a gigantic human being, and he hits hard. And he doesn't really need to put a ton of effort behind his strikes in order for them to land with a bit of emphasis on them. So I just don't have a ton of confidence in Romanov. His resume isn't particularly dazzling. He's got his 16 wins for sure. He's got his one most recent loss in Marcin Tybura. But of his 16 wins, Chase Sherman is on there. Jared Vandera is on there. Marcos Rogerio de Lima is on there. But, So? And so with that in mind, I'm going to go with somebody who's been in the fire, for better or worse, with some of the elite of the heavyweight division for a long time in Alexandr Volkov. I think his experience here will work in his favor. And I think he walks away with a handy decision. Volkov, 3 rounds.
Mark?
Okay, so the battle of the who's the best Russian Alexander? Romanov is favored, despite the speed bump that he hit against Marcin Tybura. Now, as we've discussed on here, that thing should have been a draw. He got some tough luck with that loss. But he is minus 155, and Volkov is plus 130, so pretty close. Not surprisingly, a 5-inch height and 5-inch reach advantage on the Volkov side. I've been a big believer in the potential of Alexander Romanov. Admittedly, I'm a little thrown off by how hard he gassed in that fight against Tybura after fucking trouncing him in round 1. Maybe he just went too hard and he didn't realize that he wasn't going to have enough left because he hasn't really been in that situation before. I'm not sure, but it's tricky too because Volkov has improved his takedown defense over the years, but I think I'm going to trust Romanov here. Volkov still tends to struggle with grapplers. You look at his losses to Curtis Blades, to Tom Aspinall, and I think Romanov is capable of taking advantage of that. I would also like to think he's focused on the cardio and will maybe adjust his pace a bit. And, it'll be tough for him when he's on the feet with the reach for sure. He's not the striker that Volkov is at all, but I just think he can find an opportunity for a takedown here in round 1. He's so powerful, and he starts so strong in all his fights that I think he'll drag it down there. And I think once he is down there, it won't be that hard for him to tap Volkov. Plus, this is in the small cage, I'm pretty sure, because it's in this tiny arena. So that'll help Romanov close that distance. And I'm going to take him to get a submission in round 1.
It's a great point about the smaller cage, it being a fight night. Volkov's height, I think, is going to be a deficit for him. Romanov, the shorter guy at 6'2", is going to be up and under him and kind of like in his shirt, quote unquote. I'm going to go with Romanov by a decision over Volkov. I think he's going to land a lot of damage on the ground, but Volkov, with his experience, is going to tough it out this time. I see Romanov getting out of there with a UD. Okay, main event time. Here we go. Big one. Petr Yan taking on Merab Dvalishvili. So Petr Yan, no mercy. The 30-year-old out of Russia. He is 16-4 as a pro. 3 of those 4 losses have come in his last 4 fights. Hard to say that a guy as amazing as Petr Yan is 1 for his last 4. He's coming off back-to-back losses against Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley was a split decision loss back in October. Okay. Merab, the Machine, Dvalishvili, out of Georgia, now fights and trains out of New York with Ray Longo. He is 32 years old and 15-4 as a pro with 3 knockouts, 1 sub, and 11 decision wins on his record. And he's streaking, baby. Get some pants on that man. He is on an 8-fight win streak. He's 8-2 in the UFC so far. Omar, start us off. Give us your thoughts, and ultimately that sweet, sweet pick.
What an absolutely crazy fight, man. I love this fight. I think this fight is very, very interesting. Couple of things that run through my head about this fight is the relationship that Merab has with the current champ, Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling has fought Petr Yan twice, probably knows a lot more about him inside of the octagon than any of us ever actually will. And I can't imagine that part of this training camp is understanding that and potentially even Aljamain, doing some kind of simulations with him and kind of talking about the mindset and things that Petr Yan will go for, maybe watching where that knee lands. But I think that there are a lot of avenues here for Dvalishvili to really work and make Petr Yan work more than he might be ready to. I think round 1 will probably be round 1 and 2. I think will definitely be the toughest rounds for Merab. I think that's where Petr Yan is going to be at his most dangerous, at his strongest, especially when it comes to stopping takedowns. But I think if he can weather whatever storm is potentially on the horizon for rounds 1 and 2, I think that's where Merab would potentially start to pick up in 3, 4, and 5. I think there'll be a lot of takedowns, a lot of top control, potentially submission attempts. Merab isn't necessarily known for his finishing ability. He's known for drowning people in his pace, drowning people in his control. And I think he will be able to get that done eventually with Petr Yan. I just think it'll come later in the fight. So I'm going to go with Merab by unanimous decision. Wow. 48-47.
Wow. Mark.
All right. I love this fight. Odds are a bit wide. Yan is minus 270. Merab is plus 210. When this fight first got made, so first of all, if you remember, I've been asking for this matchup. I think it's a perfect matchup. I'm so happy we got it. I love the built-in storylines of how Yan has fought Aljo, and he's had the issues with the team, and now Merab is going to go in there. I just think that there's a lot that makes this fight interesting. Yan potentially, beating him, getting his revenge against that team. If he ever sees Aljo again one day, it's a good one. And when this fight was announced, I thought I was going to go Merab. Like, in my head at the time, I was like, he's so relentless. I think the pace is just going to be too much. But then once I really sat down and started thinking it through, I ended up landing the other way. So, and I'm not, Yan has lost his last 2 fights, in my opinion. I thought he lost to Aljo for sure, and I thought he lost to O'Malley. So I'm not like some huge Petr Yan is the best ever guy. Like I know a lot of people are who still call him the champ and all this. If you look around Twitter, he lost both of those fights in my opinion, so he needs this one. But they're basically the same size, and I know that Aljo did kind of lay the blueprint on how to beat Yan with wrestling, but he's also much larger than Merab, which I'm sure helped. He also has a much longer reach than Merab and uses kicks in a way that Merab doesn't to keep Yan off of him when they're in space striking. Merab doesn't have that. They are the same size. I don't know if I said that already. Same height and reach practically. And Yan can wrestle a bit as well. So to me, the bottom line here is can Merab control him and it's not just 3 rounds, which helps Merab as well. It's 5. So he's got to control him for all 5. And if you look at the guys he's done this to, okay, he beat Marlon Moraes. That doesn't look so incredible in retrospect. He beat Aldo, but he kind of just held him against the cage all fight in a way where Aldo somehow thought he was winning the fight and he was willing to kind of chill, which infuriates me to this day. Petr Yan ain't going to do that, especially coming off 2 losses. There's no way he's going to accept positions. He knows he needs this. So I don't know. Once I really started thinking about it, Merab has to control Yan for 25 minutes. And to me, that's just so much time. Yan is not a guy whose cardio you ever worry about. I think he's going to be there. And he is levels above in the striking. And again, Merab doesn't have that reach like an Aljo had to try to keep the space. So I just think 25 minutes is too much time. I think that Yan could be better all along, but even if he's not, and even if for 15 minutes it goes Merab's way, I just think it's too long. I think eventually Yan is better. I think that shift happens, and I think when it does, it happens big. And I will say Petr Yan finishes it. Was debating 4 or 5. I will say it's late. I will say round 5 TKO for Petr Yan.
Wow.
Damn.
Man. Yeah, can't wait for this fight, man. It's so intriguing. Another Ray Longo guy for Petr Yan to have to deal with, especially in terms of the grappling and wrestling that Merab is going to be throwing at him. But Petr Yan is Petr Yan, man. Obviously, he has taken a step back, but I still think that he is incredibly talented. And if in the Hansen rankings, I would put him pretty much at the number 2 or 3 bantamweight still at this point. And I think that he's going to send Merab, back into the rankings, deeper into the rankings. I don't see him getting Merab out of there. I think he's going to give Merab some punishment. Merab is going to do his best to make it a grueling fight. But I see Petr Yan getting out of there with his hand raised. I will say Petr Yan by a unanimous decision in another punishing fight that makes us all realize, oh, shit, this guy is tremendous. A la the Corey Sandhagen fight not too long ago.
If he loses another controversial decision, does he just disappear off the face of the earth? He just becomes a hermit.
Yeah, seriously.
He's gonna lose it.
Yeah, he's gonna lose his shit. Wow, we did it. It's only fucking 12:45. In the interest of time, I will skip trivia tonight.
I'm with it.
And we gotta go to bed.